vlog.
Oh no. It's going to open like that, isn't it? It's going to open like that, isn't it?
Right, special day today. It is Leo's birthday, sweet 16, and we are off for a boys' day out in the fancy car, and we're packing the skateboards. It's going to be a good one.
Sounds so... Oh.
Right, we're ditching the car, we are getting onto the skateboards and on the tube and heading into central London. So it turns out that Leo is a rubbish shopper, and even though it's his birthday, he's got money to spend, he hasn't spent a penny.
Nothing to spend it on yet. I need to find the right thing.
Come on, Leo! Okay, so we've skateboarded, Leo and I, from Westfield Shopping Centre all the way across London to Shoreditch and almost back again before the skateboards ran out of juice. And so we're in a cab. That is the best bit of today's vlog.
Oh no. It's going to open like that, isn't it?
So really cool day with Leo. We had an awful lot of fun. It was brilliant and such a nice day weather-wise as well. Perfect day to spend with him on his birthday. Great fun. But whilst we were out, we seem to have missed a fair bit of action, F1 action. So obviously there was the news at McLaren about Eric Boullier resigning from his position and the subsequent changes that have been put in place. It's reasonably significant, I think. They've made some big personnel changes in terms of a reshuffle, sparked off by the resignation of Eric. For me, I think you've got to look at this as a bit of a positive, because what they are doing and the rhetoric that's been coming out from Zak Brown over the course of the day when he's been talking to media has been all about kind of holding their hands up and saying, look, we have made mistakes over the past years. We've made mistakes. And, you know, we're going to learn from them. We're going to start putting things in place now that will start to bring us forward. And he knows it's not going to be a quick fix, and that's disappointing, of course. He talked about this being the beginning of a journey. Well, is it the beginning of a journey? Because this journey's been going on for a long time. If you're a McLaren fan, you've been suffering for a long time, hoping that this journey is going to bear fruit. So I maybe would question that from a McLaren fan's perspective. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere. If you're going to start a rebuilding process at whatever point, even if you've already started one, if that didn't work, you've got to start a fresh one. And at some point, you've got to wipe the slate clean and just start afresh. And it feels like that's what they're doing now. So Gilles de Ferran coming in, Andrea moving up. You know, these are all good appointments. We'll yet to see what real impact they have on the McLaren organisation. We'll only know that after a period of time. They're all good names. They're all experienced people. But, you know, so are the people that are there now. So is Eric Boullier, who's an experienced name. He'd had success in lots of different formulas. And yet it didn't work out. I'm not saying it was down to Eric. But these things will play out over time. But I think you've got to say, at least to some extent, fair play to Zak Brown, fair play to McLaren for saying, yes, we're not going to make predictions. He said, we've done that in the past and it's got us into trouble. You know, yes, it absolutely has. But one of the things he did say was that he's confirmed that the McLaren chassis this year has less downforce than the McLaren chassis of last year. Now, obviously that's disappointing for them and for McLaren fans. It's also quite surprising. I mean, you'd be forgiven for thinking, how on earth does a team like McLaren take a baseline car that it had last year, with all the data that they've collected over that, put a new car inside that wind tunnel that they've been developing everything in, develop that, and end up with less downforce? I mean, it's quite staggering, really, when you really think about it, isn't it? And it just really highlights the fact there are some fundamental issues going on. You can't blame Eric for that. That's not an Eric Boulier thing. That is that's a design and a development thing that has gone wrong for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason for it. Even if you just say everything that's gone before now, okay, it hasn't worked, made mistakes. Today is the point where we start to move forward, we start to make positive changes, and hopefully this will, as I say, this will bear fruit. If you're a McLaren fan, as I am, you want it to happen very quickly, but the reality is it's probably not going to happen very quickly. These things seem to be so fundamental that you've got to really completely restructure not only the personnel, but some of the processes, maybe some of the equipment, some of the facilities that you're using. Whatever it is that you identify as a team that has caused these problems or allowed these problems to happen, that is what you need to somehow target and somehow change over time to get back to a working regime. And I think that's what they're hoping to do. So, look, fingers crossed that it does make have a positive impact. I think normally when you make changes at the top like this, it has a short-term positive impact in that people can see changes are going to be made. Then the reality will be, if it actually makes a positive impact, and then the workforce, if it's a grumpy, disgruntled workforce, if they do see positivity from the changes, you can start to build on that and you can start to grow a much more positive workforce. But if the changes are kind of short-lived and don't bear fruit, they won't ease a grumpy workforce. One thing that sticks in my mind all the way through this process is, I just wonder what it would have been like if McLaren had kept hold of Jos Capito. For me, he was a great appointment. He was exactly the kind of person that I thought should be leading the next phase of McLaren. He's an absolute racing man. He's a modern thinker. He came into the organisation for a very short period of time, and just in that short period of time had a hugely positive impact on the workforce and the people that worked within that building. And as you can see from recent events and recent reports, that has disintegrated into a workforce that's clearly not happy, and results that reflect that. So I just wonder what the McLaren organisation would have been like now had Jos Capito still been in charge and been able to make the changes that he wanted to come in and make. Anyway, we probably will never know that. But anyway, fingers crossed that it's a bit of beginning of a turnaround for McLaren. Fingers crossed it's a great weekend at the British Grand Prix. Enjoy it wherever you're watching, and I'll see you soon.